All right, Scott, we're going to take a look at your swing. I think you said in your email that you have a tendency to swing too far to the left with your driver and also to hit down on your driver. So I'm going to see if I can sort of paint a picture for you as to why I believe you're doing those things and the necessary corrections to make to help you hit the ball a little bit better. The first thing I want to call out to you is your posture. You stand very upright, very straight up and down. I'm doing a swing comparison here with Justin Rose. I feel like he's got one of the better, probably one of the better swings on tour, and hits the driver particularly well. So, you can see I've drawn a line basically from the top base of the neck, or where the cervical spine is, down to about the tailbone, and then straight down to the ground. For Justin Rose, that angle is about 135 degrees, and for you, it's about 154 degrees. Now, I don't necessarily get caught up in specific, amounts of degrees of forward bend, but I did want to just, show you an illustration of how different your posture is versus his. When you look at his, his posture, the things that I look for is enough forward bend. And when I say forward bend, I'm talking about bend from the waist. And if you'll look at Justin over here, you can see that his pelvis is actually tilted forward toward the golf ball. Okay, that pelvic tilt is going to be, critical in helping us move our weight and pressure throughout the golf swing. And it's also going to help us turn our body on a circle, a concentric circle. So that forward pelvic tilt, or that forward bend, puts us in a more balanced position and a more athletic position. One of the key things I look for is I like to see with the driver the player's hands hanging somewhere underneath their shoulders, pretty close to underneath their shoulders. You can see Justin's reaching just a little bit for the ball, but I think that's perfectly fine. But, in your case, in your instance, your hands are nowhere near hanging underneath your shoulders. And it also looks like the pressure or the balance where you have your pressure is way back in your heels. And, I'd like to see that weight and pressure more toward the balls of the feet to help us gain a little bit of A, balance, and then B, traction to be able to push out of the ground. So from a setup perspective, I'd like to see you bent over more. I'd like to see you, arms hanging, sort of underneath your shoulders, pressure more toward the balls or the middle of your feet, and those are the quick setup adjustments. As we kind of look at your swing, the first thing, first of all, when you stand this upright, the tendency is to level out your shoulder turn. And what I mean by that is that when you turn away from the ball, the shoulders will work very level to the ground, sort of in this fashion here, and the club head is going to tend to work more in initially on the backswing. Okay, when the club head works more to the inside, it's going across the line at the top just almost every single time. It's very hard to work the club head in on the backswing and then lay it off at the top. I know you said you were working with your instructor to get into more of a laid off position at the top of the backswing. But to do that, you're going to have to feel the club head more outside your hands on the takeaway, kind of like you see here with Justin Rose. So one of the things you can do is sort of a drill is to stick an alignment rod in the ground, sort of kind of back here behind you on the same plane as your driver shaft, about the length of your driver shaft behind you, and you can just kind of make some reps of your club head sort of sliding up that alignment rod. If you're able to keep the club head slightly more outside your hands on the takeaway, the club is going to get into a little bit more of a laid off position at the top. But if you work the club head, if you turn the shoulders very flat and work the club head more to the inside, you can be assured that the shaft's going to stand up at the top and try to work more across the line at the top. As we look at these two, different positions, there's a couple of reasons why you can't get the club more laid off. Number one, again, you stand up out of your posture. I shouldn't say you stand up out of your posture. You start with a very erect posture, and then your shoulders turn very flat to the ground. Okay, I like to see your shoulders working on more of a steeper trajectory, and what I mean by that is, um, more of an angle to the ground. So I'd like to see your left shoulder working more down and under your chin on the backswing. I'd like to see the club head staying slightly outside your hands. That's going to get you in that little more laid off position that you talked about at the top. Because the shaft is standing up and because the shaft plane is steep at the top, there is a whole host of compensations that are going to have to be made on the downswing for you to shallow the shaft and actually be a functional golfer. And what those compensations look like are, first of all, your hand path is going to have to move way out to the ball. So it's going to have to move away from your body. So if the shaft is vertical at the top, the only way to get this shaft to kind of lay down in transition would be to move your hands more directionally out toward the ball initially. Okay, and that's what you do. The other way that a golfer typically will shallow the downswing is to do what we call early extend. And early extension is when the pelvis moves in toward the golf ball in the downstroke. And kind of a key indicator that the golfer is early extending is the right heel comes up off the ground very fast. The right knee kind of kicks out toward the ball and the right heel comes up off the ground. Okay? When your pelvis extends too fast, the pelvis decelerates faster, which means the torso slows down faster, which means the overtaking rate of the club head speeds up. What do I mean by that? It's just simply the club head sort of flips over and passes in front of us instead of our pivot continuing to move around the circle and to the left. Now, this isn't really bad. I mean, I actually like a lot of the things about your golf swing, but I think a few postural changes and a few other little ingredients here will help you hit the ball a little bit better. Just kind of looking at Justin Rose's move here on the right, I want you to watch how the shaft shallows because he externally rotates his right arm. And what I mean by that, external rotation, is that this forearm bone actually wants to rotate in this fashion. Some people feel like their elbow is winning the race toward the golf ball, but that gets that shaft to sort of lay down in transition. And then from there, the golfer can just pour on the rotary speed and keep taking the handle around the corner. And you can see here, let me remove all the lines, just kind of want you to watch how Justin will maintain this forward bend that you see in the spine. As he goes through the ball and around the corner. Okay, Scott, the last thing I want to address in your swing is why you're steep with your driver and why you tend to swing to the left. I'm using Jason Day as an example here so you can just kind of see. Number one, I would say that with the driver, I would like to see you set up with slightly more secondary axis tilt. And what I mean by that is just this spine angle here. This is the longest club we have in the bag. The ball's played the farthest forward, and the right hand's below the left hand on the shaft, so the spine should be tilting to the right with virtually every club. With the driver, it should be tilting the most to the right, which will put us in a position to make an ascending blow into the golf ball. Okay, so at just one simple address, change, I'd like to see slightly more tilt in the spine, and I can't really tell from the camera angle that you've got here. It's at a little bit of an angle, but potentially I'd like to see your ball position slightly more forward. I'd like to see it kind of off the big left toe or just barely inside that left foot. Here's the big kicker. So here's your backswing. I put this circle up there so you can kind of, just see your head movement. You can see your head stays pretty quiet on the backswing, and that's all good and fine. Looks like a pretty solid backswing there. I like a lot that's going on there. The only thing I don't like is your left knee movement. It looks like you're trying to keep your left knee sort of braced and in its position and kind of pointing in this direction. And I'm a big fan of allowing that left knee to break in behind the golf ball or break in towards the golf ball. So I want that left knee to rotate internally. And what that does is allows the hips to continue to turn. In my opinion, you've got a very short swing, and I believe you're giving up a lot of distance because your swing is so short. And I like to see you turn your hips more on the backswing, get a little bigger shoulder turn, a little longer swing, generate a little more velocity. Okay, let that left knee break in so you have some freedom with that pelvis. All right. Here's the big point, though. You are steep because when you change directions, you have a huge upper body lunge. Can you see how your upper center of mass, your torso, is sort of lunging toward the target? Now, I'm not sure if that is in an effort, if you're just trying to push off with your right foot to get your weight, flowing in the direction of the target. This is often misinterpreted by a lot of players. They think, they know there's supposed to be lateral movement in the golf swing, but the problem is they don't know which segments of the body to move forward. So I'm going to kind of define those for you. Let's say your body's got two swing centers. We'll call the center of your pelvis, right here where your belt buckle is. Oops. I'm just going to put a little dot right there. So right there where your belt buckle is, we'll call that the lower center, and we'll call the upper center, just a spot right here in the center of your sternum or your chest. When you transition in the downswing, what we want to see is we want to see this lower center moving forward, leading the way, moving out from underneath this upper center. And what that does is creates tilt, or again, axis tilt with the spine. That axis tilt is critical to allow us to be able to be shallow and make an ascending blow into the golf ball. So if you kind of look at that, you can see that when you start down, your upper center actually moves moves forward on top of your lower center. Okay, this causes a whole host of things. Number one, you have to release your wrist angles really, really fast, and then number two, you're hitting down on the ball because of it. You're losing precious distance and precious ball speed because you're probably spinning your driver a lot. You're probably launching it pretty low, and that's just definitely not the optimal way to hit a driver. Notice how your head moves forward out of the circle, whereas if you look at Jason Day here on the right, you're going to see, backswing looks a lot like yours, not a lot of head movement, but look at the disassociation of the lower body. Look at how his lower center is leading the way and his head is staying pretty much centered. The pelvis is firing toward the target, it's rotating and it's pushing forward, and the head is staying on the wall. And when I say on the wall, what I mean by that is imagine that, this is something you can do. Imagine that you get in your kitchen or whatever and you put your head on the inside of the door frame. So I want you to put your face right up against it, and then I just want you to make rehearsals where you swing your arms back and through, and you push your hips forward and you keep your face along the door frame, and you don't allow your head to move forward. Obviously you can't because the door frame's there, but the door frame is going to provide resistance while you push your pelvis forward, and you're going to learn to feel this spine tilting like this. That's where velocity comes from. That's where a positive attack angle comes from. That leads to high launch, low spinning drivers, and then you're on your way to hitting the ball a little higher and a little further. I hope this makes sense to you. Shoot me an email if you have any questions.